I'm Raythe from RaytheRain.com, and I write gay vampire, shifter, and fantasy romance. Vampires are real, and tonight, we're going to prove it to you. That is the first line of Everdark, and a thrill went through me when those words just came together, because wouldn't that be awesome if it were true? But I wondered, if vampires were real, how could they stay hidden, especially in this age of electric lights, selfies, and DNA testing? And if I set the story in the modern world, which I wanted to do, because I wanted us as readers to feel the same excitement and wonder the characters did discovering vampires exist, what about the aesthetic I longed to create for the vampire culture, architecture, and society? The awesome gothic cities of pale stone and vast forests that contained other predatory magical beings. The two things didn't mix. Even in the movie series Underworld, where there was this gothic type aesthetic mixed with very modern technology, the world was very human. It had to be. They could only go so far from the modern aesthetic because otherwise it would sort of stick out. You would know vampires were there. How could you have this very distinct look for the vampires without humans noticing? Like, oh, ignore that gigantic stone gothic building where there are these beings dressed in black leather hanging out. Really, they were limited in what they were able to do. In the movie Blade, they tried to solve this problem by having hidden symbols that would indicate special areas where vampires could be open about what they were. For those of you who have seen that movie, and if you haven't, you should, it's not a romance, but really, it's one of the rare good vampire movies, and it's incredibly cool. There's this scene where a human is taken into one of these secret clubs where the fire suppression system sprays blood on everybody. It sounds gross and terrifying, which it is, but it's also what you would expect of a vampire club. Vampires are not like us. They drink our blood. Their society is all into basically hunting humans down and enjoying our juices, which sounds terrible, but it's true. What's taboo for us isn't for them. But simply having hidden spaces where I could show the vampire world in Everdark wasn't enough for me. I would have that for sure, but I really wanted to be able to let my imagination go wild, almost like you're able to do in epic fantasies where you get to create like other magical races. So what was the solution? If I wanted to keep vampires hidden from humanity and the human world seemingly like ours, how could this work? And then I had it. Two worlds connected. I could have the modern world and the vampire world connected by controlled wormholes, or magical gates, take your pick, that would allow vampires, and Julian and Christian, to pass between Earth and the Everdark. Vampires live in both places, but the majority exist mostly in the Everdark, away from human eyes and the scientific method. So the Everdark could have my cities of pale stone. It would have the forests overrun with magical beings like hags and werewolves and monsters made of fire and smoke. It could be utterly mysterious and uncharted. Two worlds would make it possible to have a forgotten vampire city, a marvel of magic and science, lost even to the vampires themselves. And within that city, an ancient vampire king, asleep under a sky with two moons, just waiting for the mortal destined to be his first fledgling to arrive and wake him. With a kiss, with blood, with a little bit of both. This idea, Sleeping Beauty, but with a huge bunch of twists, appealed to me on so many levels. Those words, ancient vampire king, just like vampires are real, give me chills. But then there were other questions that this raised. If I had these two worlds, were the vampires from the Everdark? Were they aliens? Or were they humans? How could they not have mapped everything in the Everdark? The answer was wrapped up with my sleeping ancient vampire king. He had to be different than the modern vampires we know and love. He had to be special. And that's when the idea of the 11 immortals with their powerful bloodlines came into my head. We will talk about them next episode. And remember, we have the first 10 chapters, about 48,000 words, a whole book, free for you to read just if you sign up for our mailing list. So go check that out. Link is in the description and see what you think. Again, I love hearing from you guys, so please leave a comment or send me an email. More vampire goodness to come.